Hey everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing Blade Runner. This film came out in 1982. It was directed by Ridley Scott. Blade Runner is one of those films where it wasn't a smash hit when it first was released, contrary to popular belief. It underperformed at the box office initially, and yet it has developed, or it started to develop, a cult following somewhere along the line, and now I think that cult status has elevated to just classic status. This is a sci-fi film that is somehow very removed, and it has that kind of neon-soaked art house sort of quality to it that, to me, it's more about the experience of it. It's more about absorbing the textures that you see within the frame that are evoking that isolation and that dread, the realities of losing what it means to be a human inherently. And this is a film that may never have really emotionally resonated with me on a basic level, and it definitely hasn't resonated with me like a lot of, or some other sci-fi kind of cyberpunk films of the 80s did. Yet it's a film that I really admire, and I think it's extremely impressive, and I always enjoy returning to it. But I will admit that it is, and this is just a personal taste thing, it's more a film that I appreciate more than I really am emotionally invested in. Many people consider it to be the quintessential cyberpunk sci-fi film of its time, and it is kind of one of the first of that particular subgenre, and for good reason. Even if you just look at the film and you aren't even thinking about it, just looking at it at face value, it is staggering, absolutely staggering. It's some of the most impressive world building I've seen of like a sci-fi Hollywood film of a certain time. And I normally don't like it when movies are really aesthetically driven, because I often think it's there to more kind of distract from the lack of maybe a meaty story. But ironically, that's what I think cyberpunk does really well. It's more that the aesthetic is informing what's happening thematically. I love the idea of mixing kind of this old world with this new reality. It's like the romanticism of the future and that minimalism and that sleekness that you're so used to seeing in kind of futuristic films, but then it's combined with the realities of this kind of decaying nostalgic period, and it's all just kind of festering together. It's grim, it's melancholy, and yet somehow it's really, really beautiful, just kind of with the tinges of neon, the glow, and that kind of haze surrounded by rain, the wetness of everything. It has kind of a weirdly a dreamy sort of quality to it. So the mix of those two things creates a sort of, rooted in what is human and personal, and yet how that is disintegrating at the same time. So naturally that combination is, like I said, very complex, and it has this feeling of isolation that few, I think, can capture. And one of the things I find the most compelling about Blade Runner is the idea of not knowing where the old world, that rotting human world, ends and where the new one begins. And that is very, very haunting. Every inch of the frame in this movie has thought put into it, has something really unique about it. Incredible sense of detail and authenticity. It's grimy and macabre, yet again, beautiful. I know it influenced a lot of anime, and yes, it reminds me a lot of some of the great cyberpunk anime films. Certainly, probably the big glaring one would be Akira, which came out a few years later in the 1980s. And then I think of a movie like Metropolis, not the Fritz Lang version, but the anime film that I believe came out in the year 2000 or 2001. And then I look at a television show like Cowboy Bebop, which also has that cyberpunk dystopian future kind of merging all kinds of different classic American Western genres. What I've always loved about that show, again, is a similar sort of being able to capture a certain tone really, really beautiful. A sense of dread always that is mixed with what is retro, but also futuristic, with a similar kind of pastiche of all those old genres. For me, that show is so brilliant because it has that combination of, yes, that same existential dread in the mix of the new world together, with a similar pastiche as Blade Runner does of old genres, combining Western and film noir, but filtered through this kind of loss of identity that the main character feels. And, it's filtered through that changing technological landscape as well. And it just leaves you with a weird feeling, especially in Blade Runner, of what is real and what is not. And even here, I think it's very strange. The film is very strange, and it can feel a bit dazed and a bit trippy even at times, which I think allows things to free up a little bit more. Things can get a little bit more eccentric, a little bit more strange. And the score illustrates everything so well, I feel like. I think it's one of the great film scores of the 1980s. And it's full of the unexpected. It has a lot of exotic instrumentation at times, a lot of nostalgic instrumentation, and it's just more interesting that way. There's a lot more to chew on for me. And the whole film, it feels almost like this kaleidoscope of pop culture that is bleeding through to like a new and very painful world, both sleek and sleazy. But I have to say, I look at a movie like Akira. That's one of my favorite films of all time. Though I will tell you, it's a very flawed film. It's a mess. It's really a mess of a film, structurally and all of that. But it is so strong visually. And it's not so much style over substance. It's a mix of style and substance is what makes that film come alive. Somehow those two things can coexist in a way that transcends despite a lot of its flaws. And it's a film that is incredibly human, weirdly, despite, of course, the subject of it. It never loses that grit and what it means to be human. Part of it is the score. A lot of it is the human voices and the chorus and all of that, but it's also just the idea of how it uses a lot of body horror elements in the movie, which really works with that concept of merging humanity and technology really well. And maybe it's a personal taste thing, but I think the body horror really informs that idea well. And with that movie, when you watch it, it's a movie you'll never forget. Like me, I feel that movie in my veins. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my blood. I feel it in my neck. It's on another level creatively. And I think when I just think of the energy that I feel from Blade Runner, it is more cerebral. It's more up here. Whereas with Akira, I feel it more in like the sensitive areas, like the collarbones and, like I said, the neck. And again, I know, certain people disagree with me there, but it's just personal taste. Even Cowboy Bebop I tend to connect more with because it emphasizes the loneliness in a way that it's both subtle, yet with repeated viewings, it tends to grow. Really in a way that is more personal and powerful each time you watch it. And with Blade Runner, I think it would be awesome as an anime, and I know there have been versions of it that have been anime. But even just the ideas here, they feel much more just the look of everything. It's like a manga, like a Japanese film. And even though I have certain issues with the dialogue and certain issues with the story here and there are moments that stick out to me over a lot of that. There are moments I find incredibly hypnotic, especially kind of the imagery. Specifically, one of my favorite moments, and I think a lot of people might agree, is the part where Deckard shoots Zora. It's mesmerizing, just the glass shattering in slow motion and the lights and the reflections and the mannequins that you see all around her. It's a mix of, brutality and pain and beauty mixed with this dark sort of coldness, and yet it's not really trying to inform anything. It's just letting the moment exist. And you feel whatever you feel accordingly. And it's a lot of complex sort of feelings. Even her outfit, it's like the fact that it is clear and you can see the blood kind of dripping down it and you can see the wounds more easily. Everything just feels more vulnerable and strange in a subverted way. I'm not surprised at all that a film like this did gain a following over time because, films with this kind of mood, I think, with this kind of a pronounced aesthetic, artistic, elevated sense of sci-fi that's done well often does touch a nerve with people. And again, it's a movie I admire more than I really do love. I think I prefer a movie like, if we're going to talk about other Ridley Scott films, I prefer a movie like Alien, just kind of the viscera of that, again, the body horror, something that I'm really attached to. I think it kind of explores themes in a way that, resonates with me a little bit more. But I do have a great respect for Ridley Scott in that time period, those kinds of movies that he was making. There was something about his distance from everything, yet that kind of pain kind of leaking into it ever so subtly that I think is very unique. And if you haven't seen the original Blade Runner, I highly recommend it. I think it's one of those things that can really inspire you, especially if you're creative, especially, if you're artistic, anything like that. But yeah, that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. All of my Patreon supporters are here. Thank you guys as always. If you're into, art, buying art, especially from starving artists like myself, I am an artist as well, and I do commissioned portraits and prints. If that's something that interests you, I will put my link for my website below. It is deepfocuslens.com. You're welcome to peruse. And if you have any questions, if you're interested in a commission, you can certainly email me. My email is below as well. I'm happy to talk to you. And other than that, all of my social media information is below. You can watch more videos here and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.